Hey guys, it's me Angelo, your 17-year-old Filipino tinkerer. It's been almost half a year since I last posted a video tutorial. And to make up for that, I am back with a very big and special one. So this week, we're going to build your very own, life-sized and fully functional Star Wars BB8 droid. I went out to buy some materials from the mall, and here are the things you'll need in order to make the project. For the electronics, we have an Arduino Uno as the brains of the robot. Next, we have here a high-powered Pololu VNH motor driver, which will drive both of our metal gearbox that we have here. We also have a Bluetooth module. This will be the one that would communicate to our smartphone so that we could control our BB8 robot using our smartphone. Next, we have here a 3-cell lithium-ion battery pack. I made this one by hooking 3 lithium-ion batteries together, specifically the AIM 650s. Next, you'll need a beach ball that has a diameter of 51 cm or 20 inches. That's the actual size of BB8's body. We'll be using the beach ball as our mold for the paper mache. Well, my original plan was to cover the beach ball with fiberglass, but the store ran out of fiberglass, so I chose to cover the beach ball with plain canvas. So in order for that to stick together, we'll be using 2 bottles of BB8 glue and a bottle of wood glue. You'll also need a paintbrush to apply the glue. You'll also need a can of wood putty for smoothing the body of BB8, and you'll need a fine grit of sandpaper to smoothen it out. For BB8's head, we'll be using this huge ball made out of styrofoam. And we'll also need some smaller pieces of styrofoam for the eyes and the other details of BB8's head. As you may notice, BB8's head stays upright most of the time. That's because they have a special magnetic locking mechanism. So we'll be using some neodymium magnets, and we're going to make a makeshift ball bearing set for the head of BB8. Day 1. The first step in making BB8 is to find a beach ball similar to BB8's size. Then grab your air pumps and pump enough air until you reach the maximum size of your beach ball. Later on, we'll be making a paper mache using this beach ball. Our bonding agent would be a mixture of 2 parts of glue to 1 part of water. With that said, pour glue on a container of water and carefully mix it using your paintbrush. Now let's start making the body of BB8. Basically, we're making a very large and perfectly round piñata. Gather a bunch of old newspapers and cut thin strips of it using your cutter knife. Then carefully lay the strips on the surface of your beach ball, then paint glue over the strips. Do the process again and again until you're able to cover the beach ball with 3 layers of newspaper. On Christmas break when I was doing this project, and I was in a hurry to finish it before I get back to college. So to speed up the drying process, I used a hair dryer and left the paper mache to dry overnight. Day 2. 3 layers of newspaper isn't enough to make a sturdy body. I had to reinforce my paper mache with 2 layers of plain canvas. Plain canvas is a very good material for making paper mache. It's thicker than paper and it hardens really well.
Around me, she said the reason you've been hurting, so you look beyond the surface.
Imperfections are inevitable. In order for BB8 to run smoothly, you'll have to make sure that there are no overlapping sheets of canvas. You can use the sharp edge of your cutter knife to cut off those overlapping layers. Then cover a final layer of newspaper over the layer of plain canvas. Then leave it out to dry overnight. While the body dries, it is wise to make BB8's head in time. This is day 2 of my build and things got a little delayed. It's actually raining hard outside, so I had to let BB8's body dry in this room. There's no sun, so the drying process took a lot longer than expected. So while I let this thing dry, I made BB8's head. I made two versions of it. I have here a styrofoam version and the roll cage version. The styrofoam version was made using this huge styrofoam ball. This is around 300 millimeters in diameter, same as this one. This is a lot lighter compared to the roll cage version. The roll cage version was made by putting together cutouts of foam board. So in this tutorial, I will be teaching you how to make the styrofoam version.
We'll have to cut the styrofoam in half, and in order to make a clean and perfect cut, we'll have to use a trash bin as a stencil for marking the cutout. Then use your hacksaw to cut the ball in half.
The most difficult part in making BB8's head was the beveling process. As you may notice, I have already beveled the edges in the styrofoam ball, and in order to do that, I had to use a styrofoam cutter. I didn't have the budget to buy one, so I made a makeshift version of it.
For the makeshift styrofoam cutter, I recycled the wood from a broken picture frame, then used it as the base for my components. I soldered a switch, a lithium battery, and a coil that I stripped from an insulated wire. When you press the button, the coil should heat up and turn red. Finally, I mounted a metal standoff or a pin as a pivot point for my styrofoam. With this, you can make a perfectly beveled edge for BB8's head. Ta-da! Bum 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 bum. Okay, now it's time to smoothen the head of BB8. Start by applying a layer of putty on the surface of BB8's head. This will fill in the gaps. Any excess in the putty will be sanded off later. Day 3. While the putty of the head dries, I got back to BB8's body.
This is day 3 of my build, and I've noticed that after letting the paper mache dry, BB8's body still has some gaps left. So we need to fill in those gaps using this bottle of wood filler.
Carefully apply a layer of putty like how you did with the head. When it dries, you can sand off the excess layer of putty with a coarse grit of sandpaper. You're looking for a sandpaper with a roughness of around 100 to 300 grit. The process is very tedious if you do it manually. You can make the work easier for yourself by using an electric sander. Do this until you get a marble smooth surface. Once you have achieved that, you can start to paint the whole thing.
After sanding the body of BB8, we're now ready to spray it with a can of white spray paint. But before you do paint, please remember to wear a mask. I had help from my dad for adding the details on BB8's body. We used the internet as a reference for getting the exact details from the movie. First, we combined the Sphero and the one from the movie trailer. With that, I prepared the PDF file for you guys.
Using the mathematical concept of ratio and proportion, we were able to derive the approximate measurements for BB8's artwork. Using a pencil and a compass, we were able to make perfect shapes of circles for BB8's head, with the accompaniment of a ruler. In this step, we're going to cover everything with masking tape, especially the areas that you don't want to get sprayed. I had help from my dad. While he was doing this, I was designing the mechanism of BB8. Again, let's start spraying. Now, BB8's body. After the paint dries, you can now peel the mask. Just please be careful. My uncle and my cousin decided to help. They traced the pencil markings with a marker. In addition, they added more details. It's Christmas Day, and what better way to spend your Christmas than to hack and destroy some Christmas ornaments? Just kidding. The one that we had was frosted. To remove the tint, I wiped it off with acetone, then used a hacksaw to cut it in half. I sprayed the ornament from the inside using a black spray paint, leaving the outer layer of plastic unpainted. This gives a shiny and reflective finish to BB8's eye. Okay, now let's add more parts and details on BB8's head. BB8 seems to have a little black thing dangling near the eye. It looks like a microphone. The closest thing that I could find, which I have with me, was the cover of my deodorant. For BB8's antenna, we used and hot glued a Wi-Fi antenna. Before we build BB8's robotic mechanism, we'll have to cut his body in half using a hacksaw. In this step, we're going to cut some wood for the base of BB8's robotic mechanism. This is where we're going to mount the electronic components later on. For the blueprints of the measurements, you can download it from the link below. If you're wondering, this is a really large compass. For cutting the pieces of wood, I used my jigsaw. It's much easier and less tedious to use compared to a hacksaw. Now I drilled some holes for the brackets and mounted the metal gearbox together with it. Then I suspended and mounted the Arduino in place over 3 studs of metal standoffs. Then I stacked the motor driver over the Arduino, then connected the left and right motors to the motor driver's terminals. I mounted both packs of lithium batteries with strong strips of mounting tape. And to make it even more secured, I added some zip ties, reducing the chances of the batteries falling off the mechanism. Now connect the Bluetooth module to the Arduino. Just simply follow this diagram. I hot glued 4 deodorants on the 4 sides of my robotic mechanism. This will act as my makeshift ball bearing set, which will reduce the friction. Now breathe some life to the project by uploading the Arduino program to the Arduino. Connect a printer cable from your Arduino to your laptop, then download the Arduino codes from the link below. It's compressed on a zip file, so you'll have to extract it on your desktop. There's a large possibility that the Bluetooth module will interfere with the Arduino while you're programming. To prevent that from happening, temporarily disconnect the data lines of the Bluetooth module from your Arduino. Then you can now upload your program sketch. By the way, don't forget to reconnect the wires. We're going to test the program. Time for the moment of truth. First, you'll need to install and download an app called Arduino Bluetooth RC Car. Don't worry, it's free. Open the app and tap on the settings menu. Tap on the connect and select the name of your Bluetooth module. It should turn green once you have established a successful connection. Pressing the buttons should make the robot move. In this step, I'm going to teach you the magic and science behind how BB8's head stays upright all the time. Let's start with the mechanism inside BB8. Your first task is to find a strong magnet. Speaker drivers are good sources of very strong magnets. I recycled a blown out speaker driver, then removed the diaphragm and the voice coil. I separated the magnet from the frame by hammering it with a screwdriver and a mallet. The mechanism should run smoothly from the inside of BB8's body. Then again, I used some deodorants as my makeshift ball bearing set. Then I hot glued them on a smaller wooden base. This will house the servo, the magnets, and the ball bearings that will roll around inside the body of BB8. I added a standard servo so that BB8 could rotate its head while it's moving. I mounted the servo with some nuts and bolts on the mechanism's base. Remember the speaker magnets that we recycled? You'll have to hot glue 2 of them on a wooden shaft. These magnets are very strong. They're strong as neodymium magnets, but they're a lot heavier. Screw the arm of the servo to the wooden shaft of your magnets. Then mount the magnets, the shaft, and the arm to your servo. And now you have a magnetic mechanism. Using 4 wooden shafts, I was able to mount the magnetic mechanism to the main robotic mechanism. Now for the external magnetic mechanism. Again, I recycled some deodorants for my makeshift ball bearing set. We need to make it as light as possible. So, the material that I've chosen to use is plastic from a clothes hanger. Using my lighter, I melted the plastic for it to fuse with the roll-ons. Now I have a triangular shaped roller. For the magnets, the store ran out of neodymium magnets, so I chose to use this fridge magnet. The installation of the magnets are very simple. Grab half of the body and let it sit on top of the internal mechanism. Throw in the magnets and let them position themselves. Then hot glue the magnets to your assembled set of rollers. Then hot glue the external magnetic mechanism set to BB8's head. This is how both mechanisms work, and this is how it looks like. When you're sure that everything works, you can finally assemble the whole thing. Grab the assembled mechanism and put it inside the body, and finally seal the whole thing using a bottle of super glue or wood glue. Although, the only thing that I have realized from the end was the accessibility of both the switch and the charging port. I was able to fix that on my second attempt to build the BB8, which is the one that I flashed on the intro. I added a voice module, a magnetic switch, an external charging port, and a circuit that would allow me to program wirelessly. The first version also had stability issues. The head falls off when I run the robot at faster speeds. I was able to resolve that on my second version. May the force be with you.
Dapat hindi mo kaya yung nasa taas.
Dapat nakatitig ka. Titig ka dira yan. Ganyan. Tapos ganyan. Sige lang, sige lang.
You're on camera, Lauren. And you'll post it on YouTube.